Hello and welcome to FS Brew. FS Brew is the region's first podcast focusing on all things insurance and insurtech here in the UAE and the wider Middle East. I'm Vidya. I'm the founder of Forward, a startup that works with insurance companies to accelerate their go-to-market propositions, digital marketing, and digital transformation initiatives.
Hi, I'm Ranjit Philip. I'm a consultant working with startups in the 0 to 1 stage. I've worked in the payments, financial services, and insurance space for more than 20 years. In this episode, we are speaking with Walid Daniel Dib, founder and CEO of Hala Insurance, a new age insurance company, or as they would like to call it, Insurance 2.0, that provides car and home insurance in the UAE. Walid is the CEO and co-founder of Hala Insurance and InsurTech, which has been born and brought up in the UAE with a goal to provide affordable, simple insurance to the 450 million odd people living in the Middle East, starting with the UAE and later on to the other countries. Prior to Hala, Walid and his co-founders ran Addenda, a B2B insurtech player that utilized the blockchain and was working in the claim space. And before that, he was a loss adjuster assessing large-scale insurable CAT risks. What were your takeaways from the conversation?
Yes, Ranjit. So this conversation was fascinating. It was great that we have a homegrown, insurtech founder on our show. It's great to know, what's happening specific to the country that we're focusing in. I always imagined Hala to be quite tech first, and would have tech as their sort of core components, and the way they go about in setting up their propositions. But turns out they're quite, as Walid said, he's quite customer centric and customer focused, and they start with that as the hypothesis. So they go about building these products, building these journeys. They consistently A/B test. They do a focus group approach of seeing if these products and propositions resonate. They test and learn from that, and only then sort of launch it to the wider world. Now that to me was quite fascinating, and then the whole tech piece sort of enables. Obviously, they want to remove the pain points in the process, and technology comes to aid. So that I thought was quite fascinating, and I also quite like that he mentioned his next focus is going to be around building lifestyle-based insurances. Now, you and I have spoken quite extensively before as well how there ought to be more creativity in the product propositions. Looks like Hala may be onto something. They were talking something around monthly subscriptions to do with people, children, all sorts of age demographics. So that was quite interesting as well. And finally, I think something that I wanted to know is where is Hala going next? Looks like at this point they want to be able to solidify their their space here in the UAE, and then go on to expanding potentially to KSA and other countries in the region. Ranjit, how about yourself?
Yes, so for me, the facts that stood out was they're trying to be sort of the Fox of Middle East. Although he didn't say that, but he's starting out as an agent, a licensed agent, and then probably go on to be a fully fledged digital insurer in future. He always looks for product market fit over technology. What founders usually make the mistake is that they go technology first and get about who's going to buy their product.
Yeah.
Another thing that stood out was obviously the regulatory piece. I mean, how great would it be if there was a pan-MENA unified regulation on insurance that could definitely drive up insurance penetration and create some innovation. Those are some of the things that kind of stood out.
Awesome. So we'll listen in. Walid, it's really great to have you with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure. I've been watching your podcast for quite some time. I'm glad that I'm taking part in it.
Very good to have you here finally.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Walid, this is a question we ask all our guests. How did you get into insurance? Typically, that's really not the first choice for most of us. And can you tell us why did you go about setting up Hala?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll break it down to first how I got into insurance. It's a story that people typically don't believe. I was a civil engineer working in Qatar. Back in the day, I don't know if it's still the same. In Qatar, your ID shows the name of your company. And I had found someone's ID on the floor, and it said Charles Taylor Adjusting. I had no clue what that meant as a civil engineer at the time. I Googled it, called them, and I said, "Did you lose your ID?" I found the person. I still have him on LinkedIn. He's like, "Yes," and he was a civil engineer working there. They needed someone who's proficient in Arabic, is a civil engineer, and can understand complex risk as a loss adjuster. I had the first two, but I did not understand complex risk as a loss adjuster. I instead gave him his ID. He was quitting, and I replaced him in the company. So my first venture into insurance was in Charles Taylor as a loss adjuster. After that, I went into Cunningham Lindsay, again, as a loss adjuster, where I worked on some large-scale accidents, like the Address Fire, and I did a terribly brief stint in the Caribbean for Hurricane Irma, where I lived on a boat and found out I'm very seasick, so I had to fly back. At that time, I realized I don't think I am a loss adjuster. So what I wanted to do really was, I saw a lot of inconveniences in the back end side of insurance in terms of the workflow management between insurance companies and how they communicate with each other. The relationship had major conflicts of interest between insurance companies that owe each other money for subrogation. And one of the thoughts I had was, listen, I'm obsessed. This was back in 2018. I'm obsessed with blockchain. Why don't I quit my job, convince my brother to quit? And we found our CTO, Harsha. We met him online on Upwork, out of all places. And we said, listen, guys, let's all quit what we're doing, our full-time paying jobs, and try to make a wedding between blockchain and insurance. And that was the birth of Addenda, the precursor of Hala. It became a blockchain-based subrogation platform. To those listening, subrogation is I think you guys can explain it better than me, actually, Ranjit and NVIDIA, but it's effectively money owed between one insurance company to another for whatever purpose relating to claims. And we had the first blockchain, I think, in the region or large parts of the world. We had a consortium built by just 3 guys transacting claims. We transacted about 30 million dirhams between 9 insurance companies in the UAE, where we're testing it with 6 companies in Bahrain and a few in Kuwait as well. When we decided, we had this wake-up call that, listen, this is all nice and well. I don't think we're the right B2B people for it. We sold that business to a company called XA Group, a Australian company, who has since then revived it and worked a much better job at it. We found that we, as customers, wanted to change how insurance is perceived. Now, I'm not going to make people love insurance, not in my lifetime. But what I could do is, with Hala, outsource people's worries to us. We are a no blah blah insurance company, no jargon. We want to make it that it's comprehensible to everybody. And I want to insure 450 million people living in the Middle East, starting with mandatory lines like motor and health. But eventually, hopefully, I want to get into term life. I want to get into, obviously, we're doing home as well. So apologies for the long monologue, but that's what we do at Hala, I suppose.
No,
perfect.
Awesome.
I think that's good, because I think many of us didn't know about the little bit of that exit story from the earlier InsurTech, and good to know that blockchain lives somewhere else. It's not totally dead. So great. So now focusing a bit more on the Hala story itself. When did you and your co-founders get the idea? What were sort of the first steps that you took to start the business? Would love to know from a sort of startup story point of view.
Absolutely. So you have to be mindful that this pivot took place during peak COVID, in a time where I was trying to raise my Series A, and my investors and many others, competitors, as well as other founders I know, thought this was insane. Like, why are you leaving a somewhat not profitable but business that's generating capital? You found product market fit, and you're suddenly going like, no, I want to do a kind of a 180-degree switch to something else. We were never impressed with how insurance from a customer side works here. I'm not impressed with banking. I'm not impressed with insurance. I'm not impressed with a lot of things. But as a millennial, typically we're not impressed by much. And customer loyalty in general is non-existent, at least in my age bracket, and maybe the generation above me and the generation younger than me as well. How can I change that? How can I make insurance a business from a customer perspective, a retail perspective, that is where customers are as loyal as they are to telcos or banks? Like, I don't know if you guys have switched your internet connection other than because you have to leave the building, from due to Etisalat. How can I make that relationship as symbiotic with insurance? We have a hypothesis. I could be wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong, but my hypothesis is, if insurance works on your side and gives you perks, what it actually explains to you, instead of hiding it in TNC, that you get a replacement vehicle if you have an accident. What if I provide you roadside assistance that's available 24/7? What if and not just say it, but actually do it? So what we're doing right now is, this is perhaps, I don't know if I should be saying this right now, but like, we intend to launch a full integration with roadside assistance that at the click of a button, the car just comes to you, right? And how do I also make your policy purchase experience easier? How do I prevent 20 different aggregators from calling you, spamming you, sharing your information in the database and all of that stuff? I found all the inconveniences in insurance that don't necessarily relate purely to price. There's always a Mickey Mouse insurance broker or company somewhere in the middle of nowhere that's going to sell a policy for 10 dirhams cheaper. But those 10 dirhams difference, I'm going to provide you the world. And if you pick that, then probably that's not the customer persona that we're tracking anyway. We care about people who care about their own well-being and who want to have a good service and who can be loyal to a company that is loyal to them.
The passion is palpable. Stepping back on just the whole forming the startup. Now, the co-founder relationship is quite critical for startups, as you very well know. You've got two co-founders. We know from data that many startups fail if this is not done well. Now, did you guys as a team take a conscious look to avoid issues or conflicts? How do you go about agreeing on the roles of the co-founders?
The co-founders are always smiling to the outside, but you have to be mindful that two of the co-founders are siblings, and siblings that have 1 year apart, and the sibling rivalry is immense, right? So what happens is the following. It's very funny. So anything I decide, typically, Kareem would, my brother and co-founder, is usually against, and Harsh, we call him Switzerland. So Harsh Ajmera is always the calm person in the middle. Kareem is a very numerically oriented person. He's very bottom line oriented. And I tend to be, I don't want to use the term visionary because I don't think I am, but like I tend to have a idealistic approach towards almost everything. And it's that balance between the three of us. I think if you have two people who are very similar, it's not going to work. At the same time, if you have no compromise, it's also not going to work. Moving from Addenda to Hala, you have to be mindful that it took a conscious decision from all three co-founders to agree that this is the best step forward. And upon raising money from the likes of OnCare Capital and Mubadala, and the growth in customers that we've seen, the team members that are so proud to be a part of the company, I'm at a position now where I can finally say, 2 years later after pushing Hala, thank God that was a good idea. This was, I can now stand by this idea where I think it was good. So at a co-founder perspective, disagreements are frequent. You have to have the confidence and knowledge that you can disagree with someone, speak your voice, and not be misunderstood. But at the same time, it's critical not to patronize each other, not to insult each other. No matter how passionate you get about why I'm right and you're wrong, vice versa. And the dynamic that we have, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think without the dynamic of the three co-founders, we would not have been where we are today. And in fact, the investors who invested at us at seed stage, they invested in Addenda, in a blockchain insurtech, not in Hala, but they are still with us today because I think they didn't really invest in Addenda as much as they invested in three people who are to a perhaps insane degree passionate about insurance and unhealthy degree.
Nice.
Okay. Very good. I think a follow-up on that is you mentioned the relationship and Addenda. Now, this is your second startup, right? In that sense, what would you say are sort of the key learnings from the first one that you have brought into Hala and have benefited, or have you been almost afraid to repeat some of those things that you did in Addenda? How is your thinking on that?
Yeah.
You have to be agile in terms of, and some of what I'm going to say is going to sound cheesy or like common sense, but trust me, I've gone through it and I know that this is an issue. You have to be agile in pivoting. It doesn't matter what your vision is if their product market fit is not there, or if the market doesn't want it, or if you're too early for the market. So without using any examples from Addenda, I'll just at a high level extrapolate what I mean. If I had a vision that pet insurance is the future in Dubai, and that everybody needs to insure their pets, and that everything needs to go through a certain digital platform with a metaverse VR headset, blah, 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 it's just super visionary. But the market doesn't care about that. All the market cares about is that their pets are healthy and they get good food that's affordable relative to how much they paid for the pet. There's a serious discrepancy between what the founder thinks they have in mind. Not everybody is Elon Musk, and not everybody has to be Elon Musk, right? I don't even like Elon Musk, but that's another story. But the idea here is identify as fast as you can whether your vision has a product market fit or even if it's relevant to the market. The market will always win against your vision. So that was something I've realized early on. Case in point would be lines of business that we would be interested in launching, lines of business that we self-launched and then pulled out. So what you see is not the only lines of business that we considered. There's several lines of business that what we do is we call it a false door test. We advertise this line of business to a certain number of people. We test the waters of what they would want. We have focus groups on them. When we realize that the certain demographics we're targeting, our hypothesis is incorrect, then we switch it off. Typically, I think a founder, at least in my position, has to be one of two. Either they have to be a serial entrepreneur if they're going into insurance, who doesn't understand insurance but has successfully built businesses, or needs to have an insurance background. A first-time founder in insurance who has no experience in insurance is going to have a bad time because you have to depend on one of two things: either your business acumen as a serial entrepreneur, which I didn't have with Agenda, or your hypothesis as an insurance quote-unquote expert, right? I dealt with claims, I dealt with subrogation, I dealt with motor insurance, so I understood the bottlenecks there, or I assumed I had understood certain bottlenecks, and I built accordingly.
Right, got it. No, that is so important. Yeah, absolutely, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, you spoke about market fit for Hala. Now tell us more about Hala's business model itself. You know, it's a great example of a homegrown insurtech from the UAE. But what are the core components that went into building Hala? Is it the tech piece, the AI piece, or anything that is the very core of it? It'd be great if you can talk us through that.
The obsession with customer centricity was, how can I build tech that is not impressive to the CEO of an insurance company, but is rather important for a customer? And I think getting a good tech team is important, but having a good product team is critical to building the technology needed that is relevant to the customer. Case in point is we consistently change and A/B test our customer journey when it comes to onboarding. I'm not even going to use buzzwords like AI and whatnot. Let's just talk about the basics of a customer is standing in line in RTA and realizes I haven't done my insurance. If they tap, they get a policy. And how can I speed up that process? How can I make it that they don't need human intervention? Because today, myself included, and a large number of insurance aggregators or companies, there's still that friction with the call center. Why does the customer, even ask yourself, a guy who's at the checkout, everything is straightforward, why does he still go like, no, I want to talk to someone, right? That is the problem I'm trying to solve here. I'm trying to solve for what is it that's making a customer not trust the process of them buying insurance to the extent where they need to go like, okay, but roadside assistance, yeah, it's written there, right? So I think that is a language barrier of us using terms like, instead of a free car, rental cars, like there's a term of like, I can't remember the exact term that most companies use. I think it's like courtesy replacement vehicle.
Yeah.
Just say free car, you know, like, or like whatever the term is, like, you know. So that quantified and applied across the board. Our post-purchase experience right now at Hala, when it comes to claims, there was I think it was a McKinsey report, I don't remember when, I'll find it and I'll send it to you guys, which said that the vast majority of people don't have claims. And when they don't have claims, but they want to talk to their insurance companies, their biggest gripe is admin. Change my name, change my address. There's something wrong. I want to endorse it. These are the processes you need to automate. It's not automating just the onboarding experience or the claims experience. While important, focus as well on the most frequent touch points you have with a customer. If they want to call you, why are they calling you? They're calling you because you didn't send them something. There's something that you promised to give them. There's a paper, there's something missing. What are your garages? It's so much easier to actually directly ask the customer than what's happening today, unfortunately, is assume what a carrier CEO wants. Like when someone goes like, I want an app. Hala doesn't have an app yet, and that's by design. I don't think you want to download an app if you just crashed your car. You want a resolution done immediately. What if I do it via automating it via WhatsApp? What if there's a WhatsApp Hala chat, WhatsApp, you know, where are you? Drop a pin, I get there. It's a good idea. I think I might do that. But so that's kind of the intention we have here. Is convenience first, technology serves stuff, not the other way around.
Yeah,
right.
No, that makes sense. Just a clarification on that one. Hala is set up as an agency, or
that's a great question. So we have an insurance agency license from the central bank. We are an agent of Emirates Insurance Company. we have a tech license in ADGM as a tech company, which I build all of the tech out of. We're regulated onshore and we innovate offshore, I suppose.
Got it. I like that. I think that's probably going to be the title of the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So, having kind of known the industry here, one of the biggest challenges some insurtechs could face potentially is convincing an incumbent underwriter to come on board as a partner, right? Because as an agent, you depend on the capacity of the incumbents, right? So tell us about Hala's journey in finding the right partner, and you have changed a couple of underwriters in the past. What was the thinking behind it, and are you finally happy with the current arrangement?
Of course, I'm going to say I'm happy with the current arrangement, right? So no, I'm happy with the current arrangement, but jokes aside, let's go a bit even beyond that. The question I would ask myself is, how did three guys, two of whom have no experience in insurance or much in the UAE in general, because Harsh flew in from India, Kareem flew in from Qatar, get 7 insurance companies to sign on board the Addenda platform first? Because it was the credibility from that platform that made companies, keep in mind, Al-Wesda, our previous partner, was also our partner from the Addenda platform. The same applied to Emirates Insurance. They were one of the first to transact with us and have the highest volumes. So we've consistently picked insurance companies that have a good repute in the market, and insurance companies with a sizable book that consider it's a symbiotic relationship. I need them to underwrite with a good garage network and a good support system and a good reputation, and they need me to test the waters or to be the free R&D tool to test digital customer acquisition, right? So this symbiotic relationship or codependent relationship means that there's not much for the insurance company to risk by going with an insurtech like us. We have built it. They have seen that we've done it successfully before. We have a good team. They have a good team. They have a good tech system. So what's important for me is that I can integrate with the insurance company. For example, today with Emirates Insurance, we've integrated both at the front end relating to policy purchase and at the post-purchase experience relating to the claims. So we have automatic claims submission. This is a moat against all aggregators because they have to integrate with, 60-something insurance companies now. And that's another topic. That's another kind of worms about how over-insured the market is. But let's not go there. It's the fact that a lot of people go like, why don't you have a broker license? You can sell so many different policies and compare prices. Because I'm not about price comparison. I'm about experience. My obsession with user experience means that if I have a single partner I can trust and who trusts me, and we build together a full stack digital insurance company, right? That means that I can do roadside assistance at 3 a.m. and you can be damn sure it will work. I can build a claim system that's so robust that takes into account all kinds of exceptions. And I don't have to worry about 12 different core systems and 12 different ERP solutions and Oracle and SAP and are you on the cloud? It's just one company that we interface with. They benefit from the extremely fast digitization we bring to the table. We benefit from their strong reputation and their capability to underwrite big volume for retail and to handle those things.
Yeah. Just to dive a little deeper, how's that conversation on the table in real life, right? When you go and meet an insurer and say, hey, I'm a new company, I'll give you some business, do a tie-up with me. How do you convince how do you make that conversation happen?
That's a great point. And I think it's a great point that's relevant to a lot of insurtechs that are now budding, right? So you've got an insurtech today called Royal Technologies working with Al-Wesda, I think. And there's a few others like Oscar that's doing pet insurance. I'm sure there are more that I can't think of right now, but these budding new insurtechs, how are they getting their relationships sorted out with the underwriters that they're working with? Welex is a perfect example, working with Salama. One thing you're going to see in common with all of them, like I said to you, is either they are serial entrepreneurs or they come from families of entrepreneurial individuals, which is gatekeeping, and I don't want to talk about that. But the other side is obviously they have insurance experience. So the founder of Royal, I think, they had one of the 2 co-founders. They had a brokerage firm that was sold to another DIC brokerage. Correct. And then if you look at the other side, Welex.ai, I recently found that the founder is ex-Charles Taylor. So looks like Charles Taylor is the school of insurtech co-founders, right? By coming to an insurance company, a carrier, and telling them, here, I have a solution to your problem. I'm not a vendor in GITEX. I'm not a guy in a suit that just flew into Dubai and wants to sell you some product that's one size fits all. It's more like a management consultant that's deep expertise in both the region and in insurance, and is young enough to have a passion for technology. That is a combo that if a carrier leaves behind, they will end up being not good in comparison to all of, I mean, look at the banking sector now. Emirates NBD just updated their corporate banking platform. They need to catch up, right? Because you have Wheel, you have, I don't know if Yap does corporate banking, but you have all of these neo corporate banks where I don't have to go sign a goddamn paper, sign again, screenshot my ID, give a blood sample, and then come back. No, with Wheel, two clicks, you have a bank account. Another couple of clicks, you get insured. Why do you need my ID? You already have me. You know who I am. So all of these things are they're happening, right? And insurance is no different.
Absolutely, and I think just to support, I know this is not a fintech show, but I think I also had a pretty good experience with VO, and the bank account is up and running. So yeah, kudos to them.
This is sponsored by.
Sponsored by.
Why not? We're open for sponsors. Awesome. You mentioned how about 60 insurers, or the huge numbers that we have for a market of this size. Now, when you have that large number of incumbents and you obviously have a wraparound, insurtechs in the region, how do you go about differentiating your brand, and how do you let your customers know about your product? And also, just an extension to that, how did you get your first set of customers? Because we imagine direct marketing being always a challenge. You have high, CAC, and it's just a lot of challenges around that. If you could talk.
Look, I wish if I go back in time that I invested more into branding than in organic marketing with Google, because I think now that funding is drying up for most startups, it's different. But if you go back to just last year, the year before, I can imagine the Google exec offices in the UAE, whenever a B2C startup fundraises, these guys are popping champagne bottles, because the VCs aren't really investing in startups as much as investing in Google's revenue increasing because of the fact, right?
So
to answer your question, being very blunt, we had, when we first picked it off, it was family and friends purchasing it. It was through, word of mouth and testing out, because we were B2B. I did not have a call center. I did not have a proper CRM. I pivoted from Addenda to Hala in 3 weeks. The brand was built overnight. And, looking back in time, I love the word Hala. Hala means, hello. It means welcome. It means a lot of things in Arabic. But you've got Hala Taxi. You've got Hala Wallah from Namshi and Noon and then whatever. You kind of, in COVID, we were stumbling into success pretty often. And it just comes to us naturally. I suppose that we saw an opportunity and we capitalized on it. In terms of customer acquisition, I'm now focusing heavily on being human, on being a brand that you can trust. And I'm not competing with, listen, I've got the cheapest policy in the market. I've got the best value for money. At least I hope I am, or I'm one of the best value for money people. That's what I want to sell at. I'm not a best, quote unquote, best price person. I'm a best price for this person.
Nice. Okay, and is that sort of working out from acquisition costs as well, just as a follow-up?
It's beginning to work out, and that's something I'm happy today. And I'm chatting to you guys. I'm very happy because last month I wasn't, but now I am. We've just launched recently a brand campaign called No Blah Blah Just Insurance across all channels with very little marketing. We've got about 2 million views in 2 days, and TikTok is killing it. Look, I don't get TikTok. But and the marketing team is like, we got to be on TikTok. I'm like, yeah, but it's just people dancing. I don't get it. But look, it's working. So can insurance capitalize on TikTok? I've seen insurancemarket.ae do it. I think they've got a very interesting approach, branding themselves in terms of TikTok style videos. I like it. I haven't tested it out. I don't know if I, as the CEO of the company, would consistently want to have my face as the brand of TikTok, but I think insurancemarket.ae has a pretty strong brand with Alfred, and I like how they're positioning the big Alfred man walking around in the office. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah,
indeed. Yeah.
I second that thought on TikTok. I mean, I'm also kind of experimenting, and I find that even though I make pretty boring content, the algorithm pushes me out everywhere, and I benefit from the algorithm. So I just tell all the founders that I meet that please use TikTok. But in any case, switching gear to the important question, and you alluded to it earlier, the funding climate, right? So what was the funding process that you went through in order to set up Hala? And just fast forward to today, what is the environment now in terms of funding? And maybe as a follow-up, I should just stop asking these follow-up questions, but I'm going to complicate it and say that, what if there's a new insurtech coming to the market? What would be your advice in terms of approaching funding?
Okay, so we've got three questions, right? I'll kick off with the first one, which was my fundraising experience. Back when I co-founded Addenda, our first round was about $600,000. I spent all my money, and Karim spent all his money, and Harsh spent some of his money. We spent everything we had getting to, we were in fintech high. By the time the demo day was happening, we were almost broke. And Addenda could have closed down then and there until on demo day, an investor showed up and invested as an angel. And then another investor came, and then a client came, and then another client came, and there's a large element of luck. I'm not going to lie to you. There's an element of luck only in the sense that you're lucky to have ended up with investors that see the fire in the bellies of these co-founders. Without Karim and Harsh, I wouldn't be where I am today. So have a very strong core co-founding team, and I think you can kill it. But fast forwarding to the second question you have, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was about the current funding climate environment in the UAE. Look, we saw Lemonade soar a couple of years ago and then not do so well right now. We see other US-based insurance companies that IPO too soon or SPAC too soon or got acquired very soon not do well either. Interestingly, we also see companies like WeFox destroying it, right? We see companies like Acco, companies like Digit in India that have strayed away from the model of pure digital customer acquisition. I think for insurance as a low frequency product that requires a lot of trust, there is still that element of human interaction that's needed. You can use AI, you can use all the buzzwords, you can plant all the plants in the world that you want, but at the same time, the customer is trusting you with the safety of their vehicle, the safety of their life, and the safety of their family, right? So it's always satisfying, I believe, to hear a human on the other side, which brings me to Digit and Acco. And I could be mistaken here, so guys, if I am, please correct me. But I understand that they have kind of a PSOS or something, point of sale service, something where there's an individual agent in India that kind of, you offset the cost of lead generation to them and they profit share with you. I love it because it brings about, I think Turkeyman does it as well. In India, to such a large market, and such a large market that's digital, but also requires an element of trust when it comes to insurance. Bypassing Google, bypassing Facebook, bypassing Instagram, and going direct to someone the customer trusts, where you build the app not for the customer, but for the agent, I think is genius. I think they have 60,000 plus agents there. Also, the Indian regulatory authority, you guys might know its name, I don't know its name. My understanding is it has a course that individuals can take to become freelance agents. Today, an agent in the UAE must have a paid up capital of 500,000 dirhams and must be an Emirati citizen. That is a barrier of entry for individuals looking to have that gig economy kind of insurance combination. There's a lot of illegal freelancing that happens with brokers. I'm sure you guys are aware of that as well, where there are people freelancing for below minimum premium third-party liability policies, freelancing for just in general without an insurance contract. And I think that might bite some people in the butt later on, where they realize that they should not have indulged themselves in these practices. Brokers and agents that are leading the prices of the market to crash because they are comfortable collecting that 5 dirham premium fixed. The agent collects the vast majority of the premium, and then they have milestone-based plans with insurance companies. That's affecting everybody else in the market. And I think you and I and everyone else can talk about it forever, but something needs to be done about that. Because it's affecting the fundraising environment for insurtechs to be viable. You're saying, what kind of advice would I give an insurtech that's coming in is, if you're coming in from abroad, understand that the market dynamics here are so complex And it is so competitive that you might need a miracle if you're coming from abroad with whatever principles you have abroad, because they do not apply here. It is a very specific market. The other element that budding insurtechs might struggle with is, we have a moat now as Hala with our license. Baydat has a license as well. Bima has a license. Aggregators have a license in their own capacity. I don't know if Policy Bazaar has one, but that's not my business. But basically, the moat here is that these companies have licenses in the UAE, but then again, you need to get another license in Saudi. You need to get another. So there's a regulatory fragmentation. There's a challenge for you to pitch to a VC. Our VCs invested in us knowing that we're about to get a license, right? And we got the license. It was a bit late, but we got it. VCs, I think, in the region looking into insurtech, when someone goes like, yeah, I have 200 customers in Dubai, now I'm going to Saudi. No, you're not. It's a completely different market. The dynamics are different. The regulation is different. This is why I champion. If I go back in time, I would have started in India, because what's the population? I think you guys know more than I do of India right now. Ballpark figure.
1 billion plus, I think, in India. Yeah.
And how many insurance regulatory authorities? One, right?
One. Yeah.
And if I get regulated in India, I'm regulated across all of India. So if I want to do a micro insurance service that gives, loss of income insurance or whatever, I'm going to do it in India. I'm telling you guys. That's exactly what I would set up.
It's got its challenges for sure, but yeah. No, true. It's huge potential though. And like you said, the whole agent thing, I think it works because of the maturity is so different. You go to a city, you go to a town, it's just so different that this sort of model helps to reach out. The product reach is quite effective with this.
Absolutely.
Staying within the Middle East, and you spoke about how from a regulatory perspective, there's differences. But if you see from trend perspective, there's a lot of interesting trends that we are seeing within the Middle East. And obviously that's having an influence on the insurance industry. Some of them, for instance, with health insurance, we're seeing variable-based health insurance plans coming in. With motor insurance, we're seeing pay by kilometer or pay as you go, which may be potentially coming in as well. And then there is the cyber insurance, and there's a whole new world of the metaverse and potentially insuring assets within that, digital assets within that. Now, what are the trends Hala is catching on to, and what are you guys working on or doing around these trends?
Look, one thing I'm extremely interested in is insurance or lifestyle insurance. And before I talk about lifestyle insurance and explain what I view it to be, I'll talk about the other ones, which is insurance in the metaverse and things like that. I don't think I'll be touching it anytime soon. Reason being, we've already burned our hands by being extremely early adopters in blockchain for insurance and not having a market fit for it back then. I'm more than happy to consider, once there is certain traction in the metaverse, to consider insuring assets there. But I don't think I'll be the first mover into that. Right now, I'm focusing more on planet Earth insurance, like people here. Because that is still a sizable market as well, right?
True.
I don't want to keep flip-flopping. So lifestyle insurance for me, my vision, what I would love to wake up one day and find out is that Hala is insuring. I'm going to give you an example. Vidya lands in Dubai with her husband and 3 kids, for argument's sake, and then you guys, you bump into family friends, and you go like, okay, guys, where can I go? They tell you Burj Khalifa. You say, okay, how can I get discounts? You go like the entertainment. And you go like, how can I take care of myself and protect myself? And they say, Hala. Because my intention is to protect your child's education, to protect you against personal accidents, to protect you against liabilities against others, your car and everything. And my ultimate goal, and I'm not there yet, guys, it's not even close, but is to find a way where I can do a monthly-based subscription for peace of mind. It's like Netflix, but peace of mind, if that makes sense. So I want to make you answer as little questions as possible to get as much protection as possible for as little money as possible. Now, this is where the impulsiveness of Walid needs to be reined in by the other 2 co-founders, right? They go like, whoa, come back, slow down. Planet reality here. So that's my goal. My ultimate goal is a bit idealistic, but how can I balance profitability for insurance companies, our carriers, our partners, our reinsurers, with what the customer actually needs in terms of protection?
Brilliant.
No, I think if we hear you right, you're saying, there are bread and butter basic issues to be solved, but definitely the vision, is something of a subscription kind of a model that's more experience driven for the
Correct.
customers. Stepping out of the Middle East a little bit, what are your sort of thoughts on the models that insurtechs have followed globally? Like, you mentioned DFox, obviously, on Cover Genius, and, in India, Digit Insurance. Which of these sort of models do you closely follow, or you get inspired by, or you see, as a target state for Hala?
Like I said, seeing how different the regulatory landscape here is in India or Singapore or Europe. In the European Union, you can, I think, have an MGA that could cover across the union. I could be mistaken, but it's the challenge that you have here is none of these models can scale with MENA because of the fragmented regulatory landscape. Until you have a GCC-wide insurance agreement that allows a UAE-based company to insure the Hala, for example. I know today we have co-insurance from carriers, but I think you guys know exactly what I mean as an insurtech. None of these other models are viable. I can look at them, I can experiment them. I don't want to pull an Uber and try them out without being regulated and then face consequences. Getting the insurance agency license on its own has been an adventure. So I'm very protective of it and very careful with great power comes great responsibility. I'm frequently looking at what they are doing, and I'm kind of watching from the distance and seeing how that plays out. One thing that I'm extremely interested in looking at, but not doing myself again, is ensuring smart contracts in a parametric style. If a smart contract is drained and you have a cryptocurrency token that's like Nexus Mutual, if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is fascinating to me because, yes, crypto is down, whatever. But right now there was a platform that just got drained out of a lot of money called Mango. I think it's called Mango because they were drained out of a lot of money because someone found a exploit in one of their smart contracts. They leverage traded something and managed to pull out a lot of money. If that was insured, you have one of two things I see. One is very positive and one is very negative. The very positive one is I see if the sum insured was sufficiently covered, it could have been paid out by a smart contract immediately. The difficult part is I could see a collapse like the one in 2008, where if it's not, and you have the underbed that is insurance protecting the entire crypto ecosystem, then that doesn't cover it, then everything goes bust.
Yeah. No, I think another interesting thing that you mentioned parametric, right? We were looking at when I was working with a cyber player was, if let's say a platform like Shopify goes down for a bit for a small or medium enterprise, that is taken as the business interruption.
Yeah.
And you have monitoring tools which see when a system goes down, you immediately on parametric basis just do a payout. So those things which are actually more real life and less crypto oriented also exist in the parametric world. My eyes opened when I worked with them, and so very interesting that you mentioned that.
Even basic things like things you can't dispute. If a flight didn't take off, it didn't take off. And there's open APIs that track flight schedules.
True.
Travel insurance in the UAE can be as basic as that, but do you have the market for it? That's a question, right? If I build it, will they come? Are people so obsessed in the UAE with travel insurance already as a commonplace item that they want me to make parametric? Is that a problem that the UAE consumer has, really? I don't know. I think travel insurance is much more common in other parts of the world, or much more common to sell to them, wherein the customer go like, they'll never pay me. But now, because they have no choice but to pay you because there's an API with parameters, then it becomes interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there is success there as well. Jumping back to your favorite subject, I think is regulation. Now, if you really had a wish list of positive and really enabling sort of regulation within the region or specific to the country we're in, and you want to ask the regulators, what would that be?
I wish that regulation is standardized across MENA.
Nice.
For an insurance perspective.
Yeah.
That would allow an existing successful insurance company or an insurtech in the UAE to operate elsewhere, because what does the regulator really care about? They care about the safety of the individuals living in their country, right? True. They care about if you're pushing, term life insurance or medical insurance. It's the bedrock or the backbone of an ecosystem or a financial ecosystem in a country. So I understand why they wouldn't trust someone blindly. But let's say if I'm pushing my product to, if I've successfully sold to thousands of customers and the reviews are raving, and I've got big partners like Emirates Insurance Company in the UAE, and I go to Egypt. If you take heed of our progress in the UAE, and if the regulatory landscape is similar or the same, then it should be easy for us to transition to there and provide a better service for the customers, right? What's happening is that certain parts of MENA, the market sizes are too small to justify any kind of innovation there. So then you have that aggressive conflict of interest relationship between the insured and the insurer. And it doesn't have to be the case. If regulators have a similar, if they follow whatever is best in class regulation, either from here or abroad, across the entire region, you'll realize even financially it will make sense for everybody, including the regulator of that country.
Yeah,
great ask.
You mentioned Egypt. So can we ask what your future diversification plans are in terms of business lines or geographies?
Right now we're in the UAE. I'm impressed with the pace at which some aggregators and brokers are going to both Egypt and Saudi. But be mindful, companies like Yalla Compare are 7-8 years old now, and the same applies to Bayzat. I don't know how old they are, but they're entering Saudi. For me, we have to always be mindful that we're barely 2 years old. We haven't, like, next month we'll be 2 years old as Hala.
Right.
And I want to make sure I successfully build the foundations that I have here for a product or the lifestyle insurance that I want to do, and that I could scale into other markets. Now, am I getting licenses abroad? Maybe. Okay. Maybe I'm getting them to have a moat. Maybe. But will I activate them? I think in the current circumstances, with the current way the market is in the world, my focus is the UAE for now.
Great. And you mentioned anyway, Yalla Compare, and they've gone through their maturity cycle to finally diversify. So I think it's perhaps the right thing to do to really solidify the base. Ranjit?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of brings us closer to the end of the sort of podcast. Before we end, is there a message you would like to send to anybody in the insurance industry, in the UAE or the broader region? Could be a personal or a business one.
Yeah. So first, I just want to say, guys, this was probably one of the most enjoyable podcasts I have because the questions are very well crafted. I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah.
I think the other one is, I think I look forward to a more consolidated insurance market with fewer insurance players in the MENA region. I see the response that the regulator is doing. I'm kind of watching from a distance regarding how the regulator is responding or not responding to the minimum premium for motor and for health, how competitive that is. And I think it may be the case that the behavior is what is leading insurance companies to consolidate. And while it's a painful transition for most, and I don't know if it's the best approach to do so, I think it's doing its job in terms of either having companies that should have shut down a long time ago do so, or companies that are better together to consolidate. And similar to how you had a merger between Salama most recently and
Takaful Emirat.
Yeah. I hope for many more to come, and I hope that they take place in a quick fashion where everybody can win.
Yeah. I think that's a great note to end it. It's definitely a market which requires consolidation. Thank you very much for being here at FS Brew. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Same here.
Thank you, guys. I had a blast. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.